Okay, good morning everyone, and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Monday morning as we are studying Perashat Pinhas, and we are kicking off, of course, the 3 weeks of introspection, 3 weeks that we can actually get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is a parallel between the 3 weeks that we are in right now and the 3 weeks that are in between Rosh Hashanah and Hoshana Rabbah. So very powerful 21 days ahead, where it's not a time of sadness. Even though we're mourning, it should be viewed as an opportunity to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We should be zocheh to utilize this amazing opportunity. Right? The Pasuk says, Kol rodefeha hisiguha ben hametzarim. The Pasuk says that whoever chased her is able to hisiguha. What does the hasig mean? To conquer. Whoever chases her was able to conquer ben hametzarim in these 3 weeks. So on a simple level, it's talking about whoever is going to chase the Jewish people is going to conquer them in 3 weeks. But our rabbis tell us, Kol rodefeha, whoever is rodef, whoever's pursuing Yud K, whoever tries to find Hashem, Hisiguha ben hametzarim. It's an easy time to get close to Hashem in these opportune 3 weeks that we have ahead of us. We should be zocheh, all of us, to really tap into them and to get closer to Hashem every single day. Okay, my friends, here we go. Perashat Pinhas is actually a continuation of last week's Perashat. Okay, Perashat Pinhas, this pasuk that we just quoted is in Echa. Okay, it's in Megillat Echa, the one that we read on Tisha B'Av. Okay, our Perashat Pinhas is a grandson of Aharon. We know Aharon HaKohen had 4 sons: Nadav, Avihu, Elazar, Itamar. Nadav and Avihu died on the opening day of the Mishkan, very tragic death. His 2 remaining sons, Elazar and Itamar. Elazar had a son who is, right? Elazar had a son who is Pinhas, okay? So our Parasha Pinhas, it's the name of the Parasha. It's one of the Parashiot that are named after somebody, okay? We had last week one, Balak. We have this week one, Pinhas. Okay, Noach is one, right? Yitro is one. Korah. Okay. So Pinhas, who is Pinhas? Good guy or bad guy? Great guy. But it's actually a continuation of last week's Perasha. So we have to turn to the end of last week, and I know last week had a lot going on with the blessings of Bil'am Harasha and all of the beautiful, kilalot that turned into berachot. So at the end of the Perasha, remember Bil'am, what was he hired for? He was hired to come and curse the Jewish people, and it doesn't succeed. He can't curse them. So he advises Balak on how to get rid of them. So what does he tell him? He says, listen, you want to destroy the Jewish people? Get them to sin. If they sin, they'll be destroyed. And so Balak sends women to start causing the Jewish people to sin. And we become corrupt. We do immoral things. With Benot Moav. And the Pasuk says that there was actually a huge plague that started to destroy the Jewish people. Vehine ish v'bnei Israel, as the Jewish people are dying, there was a civil war going on, the Pasuk says. Some of the Jews were killing the sinners who were committing immoral acts. The Pasuk says, Vehine ish v'bnei Israel ba, a man comes, and we know his name, Zimri ben Salu, who was a prince of the tribe of Shimon. Zimri comes and he commits an immoral act with a Moavi princess, Kozbi bat Tzur. Okay, he takes her in broad daylight, and he comes and he says to Moshe, listen Moshe, am I allowed to be with this lady? And Moshe says, of course not, she's a Moaviyah, she's Moav. So Zimri says, yeah, so why did you marry Tzipporah? She's also from Moav. and he takes her and he commits an immoral act with her. And everyone knew what they were doing in the tent. Of course, the question to Moshe is not a good question. I'm sure you can answer this question. What was the difference between Moshe marrying Tzipporah and Zimri wanting to be with this lady, Cosby? What's the difference? Very simple answer. You don't have to be a big chacham to know. Moshe was before the Torah was given. The rules were different. This is happening 40 years later. We already got the Torah. The rules changed. Okay. Vehine ish, he comes and he starts doing this crazy act. Le'enei kol adat bnei Israel. Vayar Pinhas ben Elazar ben Aharon HaKohen. Pinhas, son of Elazar, son of Aharon, sees what's going on. Vayakom, he gets up. Vayikach romach be'ado, he takes a spear. He follows them into the tent. Vayitkor et shenehem, and he spears them both. He kills them both right in the organs of sin that they were committing the sin with. A crazy bullseye. And the plague stopped. Vate'atzar ha'magefa. And the pasuk ends off on a tragic note. Vayu ha'matim ha'magefa arba'a ve'esrim alef. 24,000 people died because of this sin of what the Jewish people did, committing immorality with Benot Moav, with the women of Moav. End of last week's parasha, and now our parasha begins. Vaydaber Adonai Moshe lemor. Now that that's what happened, God says to Moshe, what are we to do with this man Pinhas? Pinhas did a very interesting thing. On the one hand, he did a heroic act. He stopped the plague. On the other hand, he did an act of murder. You can't just kill people. Someone's driving on Shabbat and it really bothers you. You can't just go in and kill the guy. You know what I'm saying? We call those guys lunatics. Someone goes around just killing people that doesn't do what he wants. So Pinhas, it needs to be understood. What is he doing here? Is it a positive thing that he killed someone? You didn't take him to court. There was no trial. Well, the halakha says, Haboel aramit kanaim pog'im bo. If somebody has intercourse with an Aramite, Aramean, kanaim pog'im bo. A kanai is a zealot. Somebody who is not a zealot in the negative sense of the word, but somebody who is so excited for Hashem's honor that can't stand to see such an atrocity. Kanaim pog'im bo. This kanai could go pogeya, could go kill him. You don't need a trial. And matter of fact, our rabbis tell us that Pinhas came and said, Moshe, do something about it. Didn't you teach us, Rabbi Moshe Rabbeinu, that kanaim pog'im bo, that you're allowed to kill such a fellow? And Moshe said back, Bechavod. So Pinhas went and he killed him. And he did the act, he killed Pinhas. And God says, Pinhas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron, he calmed my anger by taking my vengeance. And therefore, I would have wiped out the whole Jewish people with this act. And I stopped at 24,000. Therefore, tell Pinhas that he is going to receive my covenant of peace. Okay, in different governments, they receive honors, medals of honors from the president, from the prime minister. God says, I'm going to give him a special honor. What's the honor? Pinhas is going to become Kohen. Now that's something that usually doesn't happen. You can't become a Kohen. You're either born a Kohen or you're not. Pinhas, it's interesting because he comes from Aharon. So you're probably wondering, why wasn't he a Kohen anyways? Anyways, he should be a Kohen because he's from Aharon. The answer is, he was born before Hashem chose Aharon and his family as Kohanim. He was born already, and God came and he anointed Aharon. He anointed Aharon's two sons, Elazar and Itamar, and he says, anyone that comes from you from now on is going to be a Kohen. Any grandchildren that were born, they don't become Kohanim. Pinhas was a grandchild and he was already there. He never got anointed and he wasn't born to a Kohen. When he was born, his father was yet to be a Kohen. You understand? And therefore, Pinhas technically is from Aharon, but not a Kohen. And God now adds him into the Kohen family and he says, I'm going to give you my kehunat olam, etc., etc., etc. Now, there's a lot going on in our parasha, a lot to be understood. We open up to the Rashi on the second pasuk. And again, the pasuk seems to be tracing Pinhas back very precisely. Pinhas ben Elazar ben Aharon. Pinhas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aharon. And the question is, why does the Torah need to tell this to us? If you could, by the way, factoring in the fact that last week, at the end of last week's parasha, go back just 3 psukim, Vayar Pinhas ben Elazar ben Aharon. Pinhas, son of Elazar, son of Aharon, saw what's going on, and he comes and he kills them. So we know who Pinhas is. So just 3 psukim later, I would hope our memory is still strong. I don't know that the pasuk needs to remind us who's Pinhas. I know already from 3 psukim ago, from last week. I know it was a whole week, but it was just 3 psukim ago in the text. So why do you have to tell me again, Pinhas, who he is? That he comes from Elazar, that he comes from Aharon. Take a look, my friends, at Rashi, quoting the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin. And the Gemara tells us something phenomenal. Lefi shayu hashvatim mevazim oto. The Shvatim, this act of Pinhas, how did the people view it? It wasn't met with applause, you should know. They weren't standing there, wow, Zak Baruch, Pinhas, ki birbu yamecha ve'yosifu lecha shenot chaim, right? They weren't Hazak Baruching the guy. Mevazim oto. They were very angry at this act of Pinhas. How dare you do this? And what do they say specifically? Because like we said, it's an act of murder. They said, Haritem ben putize. Look at this son of a idol worshipper. Shepitem avi emo, his mother's father, who was Yitro. Pitem avi emo agalim la'avodah zara. It's funny. Moshe is married to Yitro's daughter, and so is Elazar, right? Married to Yitro's daughter. So he says, this guy's grandpa used to fatten calves for avodah zarah, and now his grandson's going to come along and come and kill a prince from the tribe of Israel? How dare he? Lefichach, therefore, Ba'akatuv, the pasuk had to come again, ve'yihaso, and trace his lineage back to Aharon. This is Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin. My friends, there are many questions on this one Rashi, which we're going to focus on just for today. The first question is, you're tracing a guy back to Aharon, right? Everyone's argument, what's the argument? The argument is, how dare this guy come and do this act, such a horrible act, and who does he think he is to do this? When his father fattened calves for avodah zarah. So what does the pasuk come and do therefore? To defend, they defend him by tracing him back to Aharon. The question remains though, it's very nice that you come from Aharon, but it doesn't take away the fact that you still also come from Yitro. So whatever their problem was, and we'll get into their problem in a minute, but whatever their problem was, with the fact that he comes from a man like Yitro, so pointing to the family tree on the other side doesn't help. The fact remains that you also come from Yitro. No, but I come from Aharon. So what? You also come from Yitro. You didn't change the fact. 2 things can be true at once. You can come from Aharon and still come from a person who once upon a time did idols. And therefore, what exactly is the pasuk here? How is it defending Pinhas? How is it defending? Not defending him at all, just by tracing him back. How does that accomplish anything? This is a question that is really asked over here by Reuven Katz in his Sefer Dudae Reuven. And he gives a beautiful answer. He says, many acts in life will be viewed by the masses as good or bad. You look at politics. all the time in politics, a president, a politician, a prime minister, a governor, a mayor, they do something, and you have always difference of opinion. Right? What are the polls showing? Was this a good move or a bad move? And you'll have people that say, moving the embassy was a great move. Moving the embassy was a horrible move. Right? Was it good that we got involved or we didn't get involved? Yeah, you'll say good or was bad, right? We should have gotten involved. We shouldn't have gotten involved. We should have put our foot down. We shouldn't help. We should help. We're an empire. We should get involved, right? So always, acts will be interpreted by people as good or bad. No different was this episode of Pinhas. You know, people came, they argued. They said, listen, it's a very bad thing that he did. You know, to do this act of killing someone, right? It's a murderous act. The only leniency, and this is very important to understand and really crack the code of this entire episode. The only right that you have to do what Pinhas did is when you are what we call in Hebrew 100% leshem shamayim. What does that mean, leshem shamayim? Altruistic. You're doing it for the right reason. I'll give you an example. Right now, you went to shul on Shabbat. Why did you go to shul? There's a right reason and there's a wrong reason. The right reason is for the scotch. No, I'm kidding. The right reason is to pray, to talk to Hashem, to get close. The wrong reason is you want to socialize. You go to a class. There's a right reason, the wrong reason. The right reason is to learn. The wrong reason is there's free food. Now, if I do a mitzvah, let's say I give $1,000, $10,000, $100,000. I give money. What's the right reason to give money? Because I want to help. The wrong reason? I want people to applaud me. What is the halacha if I give money with the wrong kavanah? I gave, but my intention was I want people to look at me and say, wow, look at this guy, what a tzaddik. That was my intention. And the whole time I'm thinking in my head, come on, worship me, bow to me, praise me, give me hazak baruch, everyone. The answer is, it's still a mitzvah. A mitzvah is a mitzvah. You had the wrong intention, it doesn't take away. You still get reward. Yes, it's better to do it with the right intention, but at the end of the day, it's still a great act. You help somebody. But an avera, an act of killing, that's an avera. The only way that could ever be permissible, especially in this case, is when it's 100% leshem shamayim. What does that mean, 100% leshem shamayim? That means you're doing it for one reason only. Only for Hashem's honor. The rule here that you could kill this man who is Bo'el Aramit, who is having relations with an Aramaean. The only right you have to kill such a person, the only time the halakha sanctions it, and today we don't do it. No one does it today, of course. But the only time, even in theory where it's allowed, is only if your intention is pure 100%. If there's an iota, if there's a fraction of negative kavanah, it becomes not a heroic act, but an act of murder. You know, Pinhas came and said, Rabbi, isn't the law here that you're allowed to kill him? And Moshe said, yes, it is. Go ahead, do it. Question, why didn't Moshe do it? Why didn't Moshe go ahead and kill Zimri? You know, I'll give you an example. On Shabbat, there's a halakha called pikuach nefesh. That means if someone's going to die or life's in danger, you're allowed to break Shabbat. Any halakha, no problem. Kol hatzalah, drive yourself. Not only are you allowed to break Shabbat, but you're supposed to break Shabbat. And the faster you break it, the bigger a mitzvah you get. And not only are you supposed to break it, but if somebody says, you know what, I don't want to break it, so let me ask the maid to call. Let me ask my little son to call. Just to play it safe. I don't want to get the avera. The halakha says very bad things about this person. You're not supposed to shift or pass the phone call to someone else to make. You make it. The biggest rabbi in Israel makes the phone call. Don't delay for a split second. Don't even think about it. Jump on the phone. Run and call. Pikuach nefesh. So here, there's an opportunity of doing a big mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying God's name. Why isn't Moshe grabbing it? Moshe, jump on the coal, kill Zimri. The answer is the only right you ever have to kill this guy in this case is when you're, again, 100% altruistic, L'Shem Shamayim. And Moshe didn't know if he was. You see, Zimri, over here, he embarrasses Moshe. He comes to Moshe and says, listen, Moshe, what's the difference between you and me? You're having relations with a Moavi, with a Tzipporah, with a Midiani, and I'm having relations with one. We're both the same. Moshe now is not sure if he goes ahead and kills Zimri. Is he doing that because of God's honor? Or maybe there's a slight part of him that's trying to settle a score. Moshe has no right over here to go ahead and kill because he doesn't know. He's himself not even sure. You know, a lot of times there's somebody doing something inappropriate. Someone's talking in shul and they have to be shushed, right? So shush them, right? Shush them. But we have to be very, very careful because a lot of times that shush is not really coming for Hashem's honor. A lot of times we feel better about ourselves when we show people, oh, I know how to not talk in shul, and I'm better than you. I'm going to tell you what to do. Right? And we shush everyone all around us, and it's not l'shem shamayim. It's not for the right reasons. And that's not so simple, my friends. You know, they give a beautiful, beautiful example. You know, cats, what do they love to eat? Cats love mice. Cats love mice. When there's a mouse in the house, the cat's chasing it. You know who else is chasing the mouse? You know who else is chasing the mouse besides the cat? The owner of the house. The owner and the cat are both chasing the mouse, but their intentions are very different. If you went over to the cat and you said Mr. Cat or Mrs. Cat or thing cat, today you have to be careful, okay, or undecided cat, what would you like to do to this mouse? Would you rather there be no mice at all? Of course not. What do you mean? I need mice. I love mice. Mice allow me to eat. They nourish me. But if you went to the owner of the house and you said, listen, Mr. Owner, what would you like with this mouse? Say, I hope there would never be mouse to begin with. You see, the owner and the cat are both chasing mice, but for very different reasons. The cat wants the mouse to be there. The owner is praying there should never be mice. If there is, then I'll do what I have to, but I hope there won't be. Some people, they shush people in shul, or they yell at people for doing something wrong, but they're like a cat. They're waiting, praying, hoping someone messes up so that they can go ahead and do it. The real way to interact with such wickedness is to be more like an owner of a house, hoping there should never be anybody that needs to be put in their place. Because otherwise, it's just coming to feed our ego. We're just doing it for ourselves so that we feel better about our own lives that we're not so proud and happy about. So this is, going back to Pinhas, Pinhas's act had to be coming from pure shalom. Had to be coming from love. You know, a lot of times people come to me and they say, wow, you know, your son, your daughter, they're so well behaved. And sometimes I say as a joke, yeah, you know, she gets it from me. You know? Or, you know, they're so good looking. I say, yeah, you know, they take after their father, you know? So sometimes with husband and wife, when something's going on with the children, right? Sometimes when something's going on, the parent will say, oh, they get that from your side of the family. Or no, they get that from your side of the family. People wanted to know which side of the family was Pinhas's act coming from. Here he's doing an act that's very dangerous. An act that, like we said, has to be 100% altruistic or else it's murder. Whose side of the family is he getting that from? So the people that were arguing and critical of Pinhas, they said, look at this guy. He comes from Avodah Zarah. He comes from wickedness. He comes from angry people. He comes from hatred. It has to be that this act of his, of killing Zimri, it was seeded, it was rooted in the negativity that he was raised with from Yitro's side of the family. It wasn't an act of love or shalom, because at the end of the day, if it's coming from Aharon wouldn't do that. Aharon loves people. Aharon's Ohev Shalom. Aharon, patient, loving, give guy a chance. So obviously this act is coming from the other side of the family. And that's what people's argument was. Look at this guy and look where he comes from. He gets after his mother. His mother, the evil traits of the idolatry are in his genes. And that's why he killed. And if that's the reason why he killed, then he's not a hero, he's a murderer. This is what they were arguing. But you know what the Pasuk is teaching us? The Pasuk is coming along and saying, my friends, that actually even a personality like Aharon, it's possible for him to go ahead and do this act that would seemingly be an act of murder. You say, but what do you mean? How would Aharon kill somebody? Doesn't it say, Ohev Shalom v'rodev Shalom? But the answer is, Shlomo HaMelech already told us that there's an et le'ehov ve'et lisno. Life, sometimes there's moments of love, and sometimes there's moments to hate. And not always is hating a bad thing. Not always is shalom a good thing. The Pasuk, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, Ohev Shalom. He loved shalom. Verodev Shalom. What does it mean, Verodev Shalom? So usually we translate it as Rodef. He would pursue peace. If the two parties ran away from him, he would run after them. Please, come, guys, make shalom. But maybe it's possible to understand. Rodef is to chase away. Rodef Shalom. There are times in life that we need to chase away peace. If there's someone that's poisonous, if there's someone that's negative, a bad influence, that's not a person that we should want to make peace with. That's a person that we should run away from. If there are two evil people planning together I'll give you a crazy example. They're planning to destroy the world. They're planning to sabotage good things. And then we find out that there's mahaloket amongst them. Should we go over and try to be like Aharon and make shalom? Come guys, we need shalom bayit here. Of course not. If they're fighting, that's a great thing. Mahaloket by wicked people is an amazing accomplishment, because their mahaloket will make sure that nothing good comes out of them. Nothing bad comes out of them. Right? So it's not true that always Aharon made peace. He made peace 99% of the time. But, says Shlomo HaMelech, there's an et lisno. There is a time for hatred. There is a time to not pursue shalom. Or to opposite, to chase away shalom. And therefore the Pasuk says, here is such an example. When you have such a wicked person, Zimri, who is coming and influencing the people to do bad things, that's a great time to get rid of such a person. And that's an et lisno, that's a time to hate. And even Aharon would have done that. And therefore the Pasuk comes and says, you know where Pinhas got this trait of killing from? He didn't get it from the Yitro side of the family. He got it from Ben Elazar, Ben Aharon. He got it from Aharon's side of the family. That's where he gets it from. So make no mistake, it wasn't an act of avodah zarah or something that he got from the genes of Yitro. This is a peaceful act. Such a example, such an act is a heroic act. It's an act of peace. You say, what do you mean act of peace? Killing someone? Yes, sometimes killing someone. If there's if you're a soldier and you could kill a terrorist, you could kill somebody who's going to go out and kill others. That's a lovely act to go out and kill such a person. So that is how Rav Reuven Katz understands this beautiful Rashi. There is one more idea on this Rashi just for today. An idea that's given over here, same Rashi by Rav Moshe Mendel, brought down in the Sefer Bet Yitzchak. And he says the following. He asks a slightly different question. Again, the question that we saw till now is, how does it help to trace him back to Aharon? At the end of the day, it's still true that he comes from Yitro. It doesn't take away the fact. So the answer we gave is, people wanted to know which side of the family is he getting this from. And the Pasuk is coming and testifying, he gets it from the Aharon side. He gets it from the peaceful side of the family. That's till now what we said. There is another interesting question. Let us just think for a minute. This act, is it a good act or a bad act by itself? And it's in Hebrew, Gemara language called a mimma nafshach. Meaning, if it's a good act, then it's a good act. And it doesn't matter that he came from a guy like Yitro. Let me ask you a question. A person who's an atheist, could he do acts of kindness? Sure. They give tzedakah, they can, right? This act, right? Imagine a soldier goes ahead and he kills a terrorist, he kills somebody who was responsible for the death of thousands. Then you come back and you say, oh, but this soldier, he eats not kosher. No, we can't, what does that mean? Just because he eats not kosher, you're not going to give credit where credit is due. Who cares that he eats not kosher? He did a great act. So here you have Pinhas. He did an amazing thing, right? If you say it's an amazing thing. So who cares that he comes from Yitro? Why should that matter? If you say it's a bad act, then it's a bad act. And then you shouldn't say, oh, he comes from Yitro. Quite the contrary. If it's a negative act, then actually highlighting the fact that he comes from Aharon would be greater. Because, if you have somebody whose father was a rabbi and his grandfather was a rabbi, and you see him doing something inappropriate, that's a bigger shock. So the people, either way, mentioning Yitro's side of the family doesn't help the argument that you're trying to make. If you view it as a bad act, then to the contrary, you should highlight the fact that he comes from Aharon, because that's an even bigger shocker. And if it's a great act, then what does it matter who he comes from? So answers over here, the Rav Moshe Mendel brought down again in the Sefer Beit Yitzchak, based on what we said till now, that Avera, in order for it to be permissible, this specific Avera had to be 100% Leshem Shamayim. And if it's not Leshem Shamayim, it becomes a murderous act. The Gemara says in Masechet Yomah, he quotes a very interesting Gemara. Gemara says that a Talmid Chacham, I'll read it to you in Hebrew. The Gemara says, Kol Talmid Chacham, any scholar, she'eno nokem v'noten, who doesn't take revenge, kenahash, like a snake, eno Talmid Chacham, is not a scholar. Wow. Masechet Yomah, page 23. Gemara seems to say that a scholar needs to have in him the fact that he sometimes takes revenge. And he says, but what does it mean like a snake? Why do we compare it to a snake? Because when a snake eats, the snake has no taste. The snake has no personal pleasure, no enjoyment. In order for this act of an Avera to be permissible, it has to be 100%. And there have been examples in history. I'll give you an example. Yael, she wanted to put the enemy, the king, to sleep. So she commits an Avera with him. But she got zero pleasure from that Avera. She did it strictly in order to put him to sleep so he could get tired and to kill him. And that's what happened. And she's praised for that act. So the pasuk says that the Talmid Chacham has to take vengeance, but like a snake. And again, very, very rarely are our acts of vengeance in life, my friends, like that of a snake. More often than not, we enjoy it. We get personal pleasure. We're happy. We put the guy in their place. We feel like a boss. We feel great about it. That's never permissible. There's a beautiful story of Rav Shalom Shvadron, Rav Pesach Ron brings down. Rav Shalom Shvadron, one time, he was asked to speak on a Shabbaton somewhere. So you're the rabbi running this trip this weekend, and he's expecting an aliyah. Is that fair to expect an aliyah? You came all the way with your family. You're the rabbi, not even charging. The least you can do is give me an aliyah. Well, time for the aliyot, and the guy giving out the aliyot, the Gabbai, Shlishi, passes him. Revi'i passes him. He says, okay, maybe he's going to give me Shishi. Shishi goes to the guy next to him, Bechavod. Okay, maybe he's going to say for me Kaddish. Kaddish, invite someone else. Maftir, somebody else. Basically, the guy gave him no aliyot. He was so upset. Okay, you know what? It was Rosh Chodesh. Maybe he's going to give me to be Chazan for Musaf. By the Ashkenazim, you know, Sfaradim, we have a Chazan. You don't just get up if you're a random guy. By the Ashkenazim, there's no such thing as a Chazan, really. Right? Usually, anyone goes up. So he thought maybe he's gonna invite me to be Chazan for Mafti, for Musaf, excuse me. So time to pick a Chazan. The Gabbai looks to the right, he looks to the left. He says, all right, I'll take it myself. And the Gabbai starts to be Chazan for Musaf. And Rav Shwadron was so upset. Come on, are you serious? Okay, what is he gonna say? He can't say anything. Finally, you know, on Musaf Rosh Chodesh of Shabbat, it's a different Musaf. Usually the Musaf on Shabbat begins with the words Tikanta Shabbat. On Rosh Chodesh, it's a different prayer altogether. It's the words Ataya Tzarta. Anyways, when it came time for the Amidah, everyone takes 3 steps back, and then Chazara, and the Chazan, right after Baruch Ata Hashem Hakel HaKadosh, instead of saying Ataya Tzarta, like you're supposed to do for Musaf Rosh Chodesh, by mistake, he says Tikanta Shabbat, like the weekly Musaf. And a few people started to correct him. Ataya Tzarta. They quickly correct the guy. And Rav Shwadron remembers that he corrected the guy very loud. Ataya Tzarta! Very, very loud correction. And the guy, of course, corrected himself and he continued the right way. And Rosh Shwadron looks back and he says, I wonder how L'Shem Shamayim was my correction. How much of it was really for Hashem? How much of it was really to get revenge on the fact that he didn't give me an aliyah? Many times our vengeance is not like a snake. We do get pleasure. We do enjoy it. Says the Gemara, a rabbi should take vengeance, but only if it's like a snake. You have to be very, very careful. Pinhas here is allowed to kill, but only if it's L'Shem Shamayim. This is like we explained. That's why Moshe couldn't do it. Moshe was worried. There's a part of him that's going to do it and enjoy doing it. So the tribes wanted to see, why is he doing it? Why is Pinhas doing this act? And they concluded there has to be some negative element mixed in over here. It has to be, if you come from a guy like Yitro, there's a part of Yitro mixed in over here of this act, and therefore we ask, is it a good act or a bad act? The answer is, this act is a very dangerous act. It's only good when it's 100% altruistic. And if I could find a reason or a proof that it's not, then it all of a sudden becomes a bad act. And this was their argument. The argument was, look, it must be a bad act because he comes from Yitro. Coming from Yitro obviously was a factor, and it influenced his decision over here. It wasn't purely for the sake of Hashem. Of course, the pasuk comes and it removes any of these false accusations. The pasuk comes to defend Pinhas and telling us ultimately that it was 100% altruistic. It was an act of shalom. He didn't do it for himself. He did it purely for the sake of God. I think this is a lot to chew on, to think about. And to remember that, again, a lot of times in life, we feel like, you know what, here, I have to say something needs to be said, I got to put this person in their place, right? And we justify, we rationalize doing sometimes things that maybe are inappropriate or not our place or not proper, but we color it and we say, but it's okay, it's for the sake of Hashem, it's for the sake of the Torah. We have to be very, very careful to make sure that there's no personal ego, personal pleasure, to make sure, usually to be like a snake is a bad thing, right? Snake was cursed, etc. But it happens to be, when it comes to this halakha, and to this area of like being like a snake, is actually the goal, to make sure that whatever we do, if we have to rebuke, we're not rebuking our children because they hurt us. It's very dangerous as a parent to rebuke a child because they hurt us, or they made us look bad. That should never be why we rebuke. It should only be because we want to help them. We want to show them what they did wrong, not because of me. And a lot of times we take things personal, and it clouds our judgment, it clouds our ability to punish the right way. The Brisker Rav, when he would want to punish his children, he would wait till the end of the week. And then he would say to his kids, call them up one by one and say, listen, on this day you did this and that, and I'm very calm. I'm not upset, but you deserve a punishment. And he would punish his kids that way, making sure that the nekama, the vengeance that we give, is 100% L'Shem Shamayim. Again, children is one example. It could be with a spouse, it could be with employees, be people around us, to make sure that we're doing things for the right reason, to always be L'Shem Shamayim. Okay, we'll stop over here, everybody. Have a wonderful day, God willing. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.